Does your dog seem to get a little too excited during his walks? If so, you're not going to want to miss today's behavior chat. Thanks for joining me today, and today we're going to talk about how to help your dog settle down during his walks. First thing first, you want to make sure that you're addressing your dog's behavioral concerns if it involves people, other dogs, or other anxieties. I have quite a few videos and blog posts on those topics. I'll drop a few of those links below in the description, so make sure you check them out if you're working through some behavioral issues with your dog. There's quite a few things that you can be doing in his daily life to help him learn self-control and have an appropriate outlet for all that energy. So first, you might want to check out my video, 7 Things That Every Dog Should Be Getting Each Day. I'll drop that link below. In that video, I discuss 7 things that I think every dog should be getting each day to live life to the fullest and to meet both his physical, emotional, and nutritional needs. So make sure you check that out. One of the other videos I recently published was about over-arousal. And in that video, I demonstrated different games that you can be teaching your dog to teach him how to have self-control. Because if your dog has a little self-control, those overstimulating walks won't quite be as challenging. But if you haven't taught him the tools on how to settle down in the first place, then you're going to have an uphill battle. So when you're working with a behavioral problem with your dog, there's a lot of things that we can be doing with our dog outside of those problems to help deal with those issues when they arise. So let's talk about the walk. When you're meeting your dog's daily needs and you're practicing some of those impulse control games, the next thing we want to think about is the actual dog walk. When we're discussing dogs that are overstimulating, I'm not really talking about loose leash walking. I'm talking about when your dog is out, his mind is just going there and there and there and there and there, and he doesn't even know you exist. I don't even think he knows he exists. He's just so stimulated by his environment. You may or may not already know that I promote having dogs leashed to the harness and not leashed to their collar. For most dogs, I recommend harnesses that actually have a clip on the front to attach to their leash and a clip on the back for another leash option. I'll put a link below in the description on one of my favorite harnesses that work really well for Dexter and a lot of my dog training clients. I also recommend a 6-foot leash or possibly a longer leash for some of the training exercises, but not a extendy leash, not one of the leashes that goes in and out of the box, because what we're doing is we're teaching our dogs to pull and we're not going to have as much control over our dog. So instead, if we're going to use a long leash, buy a long flat leash. You can buy a long leash at any length from 6 foot to 50 foot to even 100 feet. If your dog is overexcited on walks, one of the first things that you can do is get a little of that energy out at home. So before snapping on that leash and trying to take your dog outside, do a little play, do a little running around in the yard. If your dog chases a toy, do a little toy chase. Maybe 15 to 30 minutes, give or take, depending on your dog's physical ability and his age. And during that time, your dog is very likely to actually need a little break. So if you're tossing the ball for 5 minutes, take a little couple-minute break. When you're ready to take your dog for a walk, what I want you to think about is how much time you have. Not, I'm going to walk my dog around the block. Because these first steps might take up all that time. When I explain attaching a leash to a calm dog, that might take your whole 30 minutes. And that's okay. Because if we want a patient and calm dog, we gotta be patient and calm, and we have to put in the work. At the beginning stages, it may seem like it's really hard and taking a long time. Most of the time it's gonna get easier as you start progressing, especially when you're practicing impulse control games. Now that your dog's had some physical exercise, now we can think about that walk. If when you go to pull out your dog's leash, the excitement starts. He starts bouncing up and down, da-da-da-da-da, this and that. I actually remember a dog training client I had with 2 American Eskimos, and as soon as I would come over and I had that leash in my hand, they would go running up the stairs, running back down the stairs, bouncing off each other's heads, trying to bounce off me. The first part of our walk was actually to attach their leash when they were relatively calm. So this meant when the dog goes rushing down the hall and comes back here, I'm just standing. I'm standing with the dog's leash, waiting. If you have 2 dogs like this, I would highly recommend teaching 1 at a time. Teaching 2 at the same time is going to be really, really, really challenging. And they're going to feed off of each other, just like these Eskies did. So it's really best to go ahead and do 1 at a time, even if that means one day one dog gets a walk, one day the other dog gets a walk, or you're doing half walks for each. So if your dog goes bonkers as soon as that leash comes out, the first thing is let's work on desensitizing them to that leash. So the first thing is we're going to teach them that we don't go nuts. I'm going to attach this leash to your harness nice and calmly. So as my dog's bouncing around, jumping up and down, going over down the hall, coming back, I'm not doing anything. I'm just standing there with the leash, just waiting. They're going to come rushing back at me. If they're back at me and they're settled enough, they don't have to be a statue, but hanging out there where I can actually go down to reach and pet them, go down and put the leash on. I'm going to start to bend down to attach that leash. Very likely your dog's going to bounce again and run down the hall or bounce over there. That's fine. I'm going to stand back up. I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to say stay, no, wait, leave it, all that kind of stuff. All I'm doing is teaching them, we're just going to wait. We want a patient dog. We have to be patient. And I'm going to stand back up. They're going to ping pong all over the place and then again come back down. And then I'm going to reach down. And then again, if they're ping ponging away, then I'm going to stand back up. And I'm going to continue this. If this is really, really challenging for you and your dog, then I recommend working with just attaching their leash multiple times during the day, which means you're going to go through this process 5, 10 different times throughout the day, a couple minutes at a time. Set the timer. Set your watch timer. So if you say, I'm going to practice this for 5 minutes, and you don't actually get to attach your dog's leash in that 5 minutes, that's okay. And in reality, that's actually not bad, because what happens then is your dog is learning, well, wait, I didn't get attached to the leash and I didn't get to go outside, so I guess this isn't quite as exciting as I thought it was. Because in the beginning stages, that leash means going outside, going for a walk. Your dog is conditioned that that leash means all that excitement. So by just practicing getting your dog's leash on and actually not taking them outside, or even in some lessons you don't get that leash attached, that leash is slowly losing what it once meant. So we're desensitizing your dog to the power of that leash. So now the time comes and you actually have your dog attached to the leash. What's the next trigger? The door handle usually. So you're going to think about what you just did with that leash. The dog's out of his mind, you stop. My dog's now attached to the harness and the leash and me, and I'm ready to reach in and open that door. I'm going to keep going as long as my dog's being calm. Again, we don't have to have a statue, just not out of his mind. I want my dog to be able to think. And if he can't think now, he's not going to be able to think out there. And again, the clock's going. So you're not concerned about going around the block. You're concerned about the clock. Your thought process is the time. So again, if you're 30 minutes or 10 minutes or 20 minutes, whatever time you had is up, that's it. You're done with today's lesson. But as your dog's learning, you're going to get through these steps faster. And during these steps, you're welcome, of course, to add food to that training session. So if your dog's being good and sitting, go ahead and give them a treat. But you don't have to. It's up to you, and you can do a little combination of both. If going for a walk or attaching the leash or opening the door is a reward to your dog, then that's what he's getting for the good behavior. So you don't have to use food, but you can use food. Play around with it. Food won't hurt. Now that your hand's on that handle and you can turn the knob, we can step out the door. If your dog has a sit-stay or a wait behavior, you can do that at the doorway as well, so that they're waiting to be released to go outside. You don't have to be the first one outside. Your dog can, we just don't want him to blow you over. So from my house, it's much easier for Dexter to go out the door first and me second, so I can shut the door, versus me going out, Dexter going out, me trying to scoot Dexter down and turn around and shut the door. Our rule is that he just waits for me at the door until I tell him okay. So when I go to open the door, he doesn't barge out, he waits for me to say okay, and then he starts to go down, and then I come in behind him. So he's being patient and waiting for that cue to be released, but he goes out first. We always want to remember too that when you're working and training with your dog, you need to pay attention to them. You need to be on the whole time, especially when we're trying to untrain a behavior. We really need to be aware of everything around us and our dog, so that hopefully we can be one step ahead of that distraction. This will help your walk, because then you're going to decide, do I want to go that way towards the squirrel? Or maybe I should go this way where there's not so many things going on. But that only happens if we're aware. And then you're also juggling what's going on down there with your dog. What's your dog doing? You want to really pay close attention to your dog's body language, so that you can work on getting your dog's attention before they go over the top. If your dog is super excited just in his front yard, continue that clock just in your yard. What I really like to do is tell the dogs to sniffy sniff and allow them to do some sniffing. Sniffy sniff gives my dog permission to go investigate things at his own pace, and then I'm going to follow along. Now I am going to make sure that he stays safe and doesn't go into the road by maybe redirecting and pointing somewhere else if I need him to kind of navigate over here. But sniffy sniff is giving my dog permission to go investigate what he wants. And by allowing this to happen, this will help your dog really kind of soak in the environment and unwind and use some different senses. Remember, dogs, how do they see? Through their nose. So let them sniff. Depending on that clock, that may be all you get to today. And if so, you can say, okay, let's go back. And then you go back in the house. If your time is still running after some nice sniffing, maybe ask for an attention behavior where they're looking at you to re-engage from, we're done sniffing, we're done with our sniffy walk, now we're going to go do something else. As you're starting to move along, don't think about going too far. Stay close to home at the beginning. This will really help your dog get comfortable about his environment, and again, not quite as stimulating. You might walk around your own yard. One house down, back to your house. One house that way, back to your house. So that you're just slowly moving around with your dog. It's not that long straight walk. The other thing is to think about that. Maybe it's not just that one straight walk. Maybe we go down here, and if you're in a quiet subdivision, maybe we kind of cross the street, and then we cross back, kind of zigzag around, so that again, it's not nose to the ground, whoof, that way. A lot of times by doing this, you're pulling the attention back to you a bit more versus their environment. Because they're like, where's mom going? Why? We're going over here. I thought we were going down that straight line. You can also throw in some of the behaviors your dog knows. Sit, down, nose target, spin, watch. And that again will engage your dog. Throw in a sniffy sniff here and there. So you walk down to the neighbor's house and he did really well and was in pretty good control, especially for him. Then tell him sniffy sniff, and then let him sniff wherever he wants to go, whether or not it's down the sidewalk a little more or maybe across the street. And then after a little sniffing, then refocus again. Okay, let's watch. Good job. Can we go down? Good job. And during these exercises, then you definitely want to use food rewards and make them a high value that it's really worth it, because you don't want to use that boring biscuit that you use inside the house. You want to use something extra special. And for most dogs, that extra special tends to be meat. And if it's warmed up meat, even better. The stinkier and the smellier are usually the better. As you're moving along, think about all the things that your dog finds distracting. If other dogs are distracting, or critters, or bikes, or moving cars, You're always looking for those things first. So as you're hanging out with your dog doing things, look ahead. Okay, wait, there's a bike and he's 10 houses down. My dog doesn't normally pay attention when he's 10 houses down, but he pays attention when he's 5 houses down. So at 10 houses down, that's when you want your dog to go ahead and see it. So move your dog around so he can see the bike 10 houses down. Let him make that connection and then say, oh, good job, can you watch? Let's go this way. Because what you're slowly doing is you're teaching your dog that thing that gets you excited 5 houses down, since it's 10 houses down, isn't it cool? Can't you pay attention to me instead? And he does, and he gets a reward. So what you're doing is you're slowly desensitizing him once again to that trigger, meaning a food reward or a sniffy sniff or something else and exciting. What your goal can be is to figure out those triggers for your dog, figure out that distance that they need to get rewarded so they can get that success. So maybe after 5 times of seeing a bike at 10 houses down, the next time you do it, you get a little closer. So now you're 8 houses down in reward, 7 houses down, 6, 5, 4, you get the idea. At any time if your dog gets out of hand and overreacts, don't punish your dog and don't yell at your dog. You're going to instead get that distance that he needs to feel comfortable and then reward your dog. Even if that now is 50 feet because he overreacted, now he's excited and stimulated. What used to be 10 feet now needs to be 50 feet. So you're going to keep on moving to that 50 feet until he can finally settle down. And then you're going to tell him how smart he is. You're such a good boy. Aren't you so handsome? How about this bite of turkey? You just want to regroup. You want your dog to regroup. You want him to kind of come back, think about what's going on, settle down, and relax. That next time you see that bike, shoot for 15 feet instead of 10. Will this take time? You bet, especially if your dog's been like this for a long time. The longer a behavior's been happening, the longer it usually takes to untrain. So that's why the next dog that comes along, work on being proactive with that dog. It's always easier to be proactive with a dog than trying to change an instilled behavior. But they are so worth it, and taking them out on adventures is so much fun. And don't forget, you're really trying to stay within your dog's comfort zone, and you're working on all those other exercises, meeting their 7 needs, working on impulse control exercises, leave it, stay, attention, all those things that you're doing at home and in different situations are going to build on this situation. And so everything together is a bit of a synergy. So all these things work together so that your progress can be faster and more successful. When you brought that bundle of joy home, I'm sure you envisioned really nice, fun, long walks with him. And it's not too late. You just need to go really slow and be patient and very likely drop some of the expectations you've had. If your dog is progressing and doing better, you're on the right track. Hang in there. Keep practicing. He may never be a cool cucumber, but you should be able to get some nice walks and adventures under your belt pretty soon. If you learned a few tips in today's video, please hit the thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and you can click the bell icon and you'll be notified every time I upload a new video. And if you want to dive deeper into your dog's behavior, training, and care, you can check out my private Patreon page, the link's below. And until next time, remember to pause and enjoy life. And I'll see you in the next video.
Let me tell you a story about the baddest dog there ever was. Sneaking food from the fridge, tearing up the garbage. He's a goofy old Dexter the dog. He's a bad Dexter the dog. The baddest pup that there ever was. Seat stealing all day long, howling like a junkyard dog.